same people?
Because he doesn't want to do it. And our relationship kind of forced it. So when we're on the carpet, and I can just tell, he's a little bit uncomfortable.
I want to talk about this.
Like he's in the middle of legal troubles. Why don't you wait to see how everything kind of shakes out?
Yeah, every friend advises me.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, one thing I know is I can always look myself in the mirror when I trust. So if this is what it is, then love, if that's what it is, then at some point they're going to figure it out. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, he's like, are you sure? I mean, he actually tried to encourage me to not be with him. And I was
Started a relationship in the midst of all of this.
Well, I won't get into how it started, but what I will say is the support that we've been.
Hey guys, welcome to Little Blackbird 91. This is your favorite dating and relationship coach. You guys asked me a question. You wanted me to find out why is it that someone like Meagan Good would date Jonathan Majors. I want to say this. If you've watched my channel before, you know I talk about this quite a bit. It's called the mirror. People date people because people mirror them, okay? And there are usually three kind of levels. I'm sure there's probably more, but we could break it down in the future. And one of them is complementary actions. The person's got a complementary action that you like, or characteristic or behavior that you particularly like that you don't have. Number two is we see ourselves in that other person, and therefore we like to be with that person. Number three is that we see a familiar energy or dynamic which we have experienced in our childhood. There's probably a fourth one, but it kind of links back to number one, which is that sometimes we see something that's broken in them and we want to save them. Okay. And I do feel like there's a little bit of that maybe from both Meagan and Jonathan in some sense, or at least let me say Meagan, but I don't want to jump too quickly there. So if you want to know more about why I believe that these two actually got together in my particular theory, probably should tune in and stick with us. We're on about part 4, part 5 of this series of different videos that I'm breaking down with Meagan Good, Devon Franklin, and Jonathan Majors as well. But let's not forget what Jonathan Majors actually said. He's looking for his Coretta Scott. He's looking for somebody that's going to play an intelligent, smart woman who plays a supportive role. It's not why he was arguing with Grace Jabari. It's because he wanted her to play this great supportive role where they had this beautiful kind of cover and imagery, a bit like the Obamas, where there's a perfect image and people can't talk against it. They can only like it and enjoy it and only, magnify it. And that's what he's looking for. So can Meagan Good play that role? Absolutely. She's an actor. She does it all the time, playing that role where everything is great and everything's amazing. We didn't even know they were going to get divorced. One day we found out they're going to get divorced. So they definitely can play that particular role. So we're going to break it down a little bit more deeper. We're going to talk about attachment style. We're going to talk about parentification, but we're also going to talk a little bit about their backgrounds and what we know about them already as to why potentially this is the reason why these two came together in this situation. So if you're new to the channel, make sure you guys do me a massive favor. Make sure you like, you share, you subscribe, you click on that bell button for notification of the uploads. Okay, all right. Look, I would say my coaching is open, but it's you just got to get in where you can get in, because I'm booked for the next 3 months, and each day there's like another slot that opens. So get it when you can get it, guys. That's what I'm going to tell you. We don't charge a specific amount. It's not free. You can pay whatever you feel it's worth, but I want to let you guys know that I'm here to help you guys and serve you guys. Okay, let's get into this, because I want to be able to explain what I believe is a reason for Jonathan Majors and Meagan Good, because a lot of people feel some way about Meagan Good and Jonathan Majors because they're looking at Meagan Good and going, how does she want to date someone like Jonathan Majors? He's kind of quote unquote, we would say he's an abuser, somebody might say, right? Which I think there's a bit of a gray area there, but okay. How does someone like Meagan Good date someone like Jonathan Majors? Well, I think we've got to get back to the very beginning of the situation, right? First and foremost, she didn't actually want to be in a relationship in the first place outside of her marriage. Let's just go back, well back.
Accept that if this isn't something I've chosen, but it's something that God has allowed, then God has allowed it for a good reason. And I think that we both have grown from it tremendously. I think that now, I think that at the time I was so mad at Devon, but now I think what he did was very brave. And
now you have to understand that she never wanted to divorce. I'm going to do a separate video for this. She never wanted to divorce. And in fact, a lot of her videos, the reason why she keeps talking about how much pain that she's in is because she never wanted to divorce. She was willing to stick it out and stay in this marriage and make it work. Right. So now you have to understand her actual origin and the beginning story of what happened to Meagan Good. We know that she told us that God told her that Devon Franklin was her husband. They got together, they got married and gave us 10 beautiful years. Unfortunately, the breakdown of the relationship happened. He divorced her. And now we are at a point where Meagan Good is free to now go and date. Now, what's really intriguing about this is she told us that she felt free, she felt loved, she felt cared for in the marriage with Devon Franklin. Okay. And so she's not trying to exit that marriage, okay, as far as I'm concerned. So it's not like she's necessarily looking for freedom when it comes to Jonathan Majors. I think what does happen, though, is this shift. Okay, the big shift is this: Meagan Good goes through a transformation where she told us that she no longer fears loving, which is going back to the attachment style where we talk about fearful avoidant. What that means is attachment style is a way that we attach in relationships with people. Fearful avoidance, emotionally attached to people in a way where they both want love and at the same time are afraid of rejection and afraid of abandonment. And so what ends up happening, they become hot and cold. They struggle to tell their needs. They are people that love to serve people because their anxious side always wants to earn people's love, and then they avoid they try to avoid opening themselves up and being emotional because they're afraid of being rejected, right? And they're afraid of disappointing people. So and that means they're afraid also of commitment in that same sense. But what's really intriguing about that is within that scope, we've got that parentification aspect. This is in part 3 of the video that I played, right? We know about the fact that her mother, she actually playing a provider role. We can have a look at
I'm a
it.
provider for my family. Did that give you a sense of accomplishment? Because you're a child. At the end of the day, you're still a child.
Yeah.
And a lot of what's coming into the home is courtesy of you.
Well, I looked at it like my mother, before that time, had did everything on her own with an old.
So we know that obviously Meagan Good obviously had to play a provider role. So she had to grow up before her time and become this adult within the household. Okay. Now this is going to play a part. You've got the fearful avoidant attachment. You've got your parentification, where you're going to probably have some level of hyper independence, which is going to link up with your avoidance side of you as well, because avoidance tend to be hyper independent and anxious people tend to be codependent. And so what ends up happening is that on extreme sides of the dependence scale, in a sense, right? Which means for the avoidant, they want their freedom and they want to feel free. Okay. Now, the intriguing thing is, I don't think that Jonathan Majors, restricts her or anything like that at all. I don't think she would be there if that was the case. I think the reason, my number one thing looking at it is looking at Meagan Good's background in terms of her mother and what her mother did, which was play this massive caretaking role at the very beginning with not just her and her sister, but also a stepbrother as well.
With special needs, and then me and my sister, and then ultimately when she remarried, my stepbrother, and then she adopted my younger sister when I was 14. I was 4 years from being out of the house, and so my mother has been such a provider for everybody on every level that it was nothing for me to want to do it for her. And then also, again, she was doing the work, she was managing us.
Now you notice how she said obviously her mother was taking care of her sister, which is fine, that's her kids. And then a younger sister got adopted, and then a brother or a special needs as well. She was looking after that person too. Like she took on extra to be a caretaker. And I think this is exactly where we need to start the story as to why choice happens. Because you see, with the fearful avoidance and the parentification happening, what can happen is people can find their identity in servitude. Okay. Now that with a mixture of wanting to find identity in servitude or loving the aspect of serving a man, being submissive and serving them, can also mix with the idea that you want your freedom. Okay, let's play a little bit of this clip here.
It's about, man, if I get married, I'm probably going to be tied to a ball and chain, or I'm going to lose myself. What type of advice would you give to those who are having those preconceived notions?
Yeah, I mean, that for me was definitely a concern. That was one of the things I was concerned about most was, if I get in marriage, am I going to lose my free spiritness? Am I going to lose my boldness? Am I going to lose my fearlessness? Everything that I really loved about myself in my 20s. I was, afraid that those things would kind of be like dimmed, or my light would be dimmed. And then when I thought of what I thought submission meant at the time, I was like, oh man, I don't know. And what I found in marriage was that I'm so much freer. I'm so much wholer. I'm so much happier. I have so much more peace, and I have more of a boldness, and I have more of a fearlessness, I guess, because I have that partner who reaffirms me in who I already am, who speaks to God on my behalf, who covers me, and I do likewise.
Okay, so that was a bit of a long one, but I want you to hear how freedom for her is a massive thing. Freedom is a massive thing. Fearful avoidance need their autonomy, okay? All right, they're like black cats. Like to go out, come in, go out, come in. Now, they need to communicate because that's going to cause a lot of issues. But fearful avoidance love their freedom. But at the same time, they also are caretakers. And I think this is where she meets Jonathan Majors. Because I think when we look at also her situation with how she met Devon Franklin, he's in the church. He's in the four walls of ministry. And within the four walls of ministry, there's a kind of an image you have to uphold. Remember how she got treated by the church, how they told her, we're going to cover up, right? We're going to dress right? Right, she was literally lambasted throughout the course of the 10 years by other Christians within the scope of the Christian community, and she was always being nitpicked at. Right, now that can be very painful because the very community you're looking for acceptance from are the very people also turning you against you. Now, I always say this: as Christians who are within the four walls, and there are Christians who live outside of the four walls. There are Christians who live outside. There are Christians who are in Hollywood, who are in sports, who are in media, TV, whatever. There are Christians that are dotted in business. There are Christians who don't necessarily operate within the four walls. Your pastors, your prophets, and your minister. They don't operate within the four walls of a church ministry. And therefore, the way that they move in life is slightly different. We heard Meagan say about, her own convictions. She was on a boy magazine or whatever. It didn't convict her because she wasn't naked or anything like that. Cool. Because for her, she's not in the four walls of the church. She's outside of that. Now, why is that important? Well, I think also because the way that people move within the Christendom, right? And that's why I was saying about her appearance. Whenever I saw Meagan Good, her appearance was always very church-like. Now, if you've been to church, you've been to a black church, you know how we dress. Okay, you know. Well, I mean, lately it's a bit different, but back in the day, you used to dread just a little bit like a granny. You want to cover up. You know what I'm saying? She ain't gonna expose no breasts. You know what I'm saying? You ain't gonna. That green top that she wore should have been a hoochie. Should have been a hoochie in church. Okay, they'd have been labeling her about her trying to steal the pastor from his wife if she wore what she wore into church. Now, why am I saying that? Because there's an energy and a spirit that goes behind people that are within the church walls that is very different to people who are living outside of the church walls. Okay. All right. And so that in itself, okay, can be restricting. So Devon might not be restricting, but that might be restrictive. Why is that important? Because I think now with her going on her journey as well of healing and learning more about herself, I think she found some freedom outside of the church. What I mean by that is she gave it a chance. She gave it 10 years. Okay. She supported her husband. She didn't want a divorce. The husband that she found in the church ended up divorcing her after she'd been critiqued by the people in the church. That can create an area of rejection. Oh, let's go there. That can create that wound again of rejection. So why would she go back to the church to find another man? She ain't. She's going to go back to where she knows what she knows. Hollywood. Kai. Because where you went to, I believe that Meagan thought to herself, I've got a bet. We know Meagan's good history. Her dating history was a little bit sketch. Yeah, she had said herself a little bit sketch, right? Some of the guys she chose. I think when she obviously, give herself to the Lord and let the Lord use her and speak to her, and when the Lord said, Devon Franklin is your man, she thinks to herself, okay, fantastic. I've got a different one. I've got a man that loves the Lord. I've got a man that's in ministry. I've got a man that, this is going to be the one, right? And it was the one. I'm not going to deny that. It's a change from the different type of guys that she's dating in the past. I think Devon is the outlier here. I think Devon's the outlier here, right? Remember she at one point she was linked to 50 Cent and a couple of other people as well. I remember the guy that she was linked to when she came out in a divorce with Devon Franklin. It was a little bit gangster. If you listen to her story with Shannon Sharp, she's a little bit of a gangster herself. So that Meagan Good is an image that she's sweet old Meagan Good. But when you listen to her backstory on Shannon Sharp, the girl was in some beefs. Now, some of it was apparently not her fault. She was getting bullied. But there were some of them where she was about that life. So we're misrepresenting her. We're thinking Meagan Good, all right, the good girl next door. But we don't realize that Meagan Good from the streets. So she can handle herself. She know what she about. That's why she dated certain type of guys. Not to say that she's, anything bad about her. It's just to say, right? So when I say that she dated Jonathan Majors, it's a mirror. We are looking at it incorrectly because we have a perception of her thinking she's a good girl next door. Why would she date someone like Jonathan Majors? No. Jonathan Majors is a great mirror for her. She tried, I believe, to do a new way and go with the guy that she was meant to go with. And she would have stayed there had it not been him divorcing her. But when she came out of that, she was like, all right, cool. I need to live my life. I need to be free. I don't need to be constrained. Okay? I don't need to be constrained. Right? Listen to this.
Like he's in the middle of legal troubles. Why don't you wait why don't you wait to see how everything kind of shakes out?
Yeah, every friend advises me. Yeah. But at the end of the day, one thing I know is I can always look myself in the mirror when I trust my spirit, when I trust God, when I ask God, and when I, move to the beat of my own drum.
Now, she tells you this, when she moves to the beat of her own drum. You see, one of the things about fearful avoidance is that they have a resentfulness sometimes, because when they get into relationship with people, they don't often tell you their needs and their wants. So they feel like they're being controlled. Then they have the same issue that dismissive avoidance have, right? That dismissive avoidance are afraid of rejection, and they also don't like too much emotional volatility because it makes them feel like they're being manipulated. So they also too feel that same aspect, right? And so what can end up happening is people's opinions and thoughts can be somewhat controlling for her. People's opinions and thoughts can be somewhat heavy weighted, because one of the things about fearful avoidance that people don't know about is that they lose their voice. Because what they go through of chaos and turmoil, they tend to lose their voice and they tend to be a chameleon. Now, what's really interesting, and I wish I took the clip, I forgot about this point, that she mentioned about how does she get through Shannon Sharp, how does she end up getting through the industry? And she said, because she's a chameleon. She knows how to shapeshift. And I realized that is her fearful avoidance side, knowing how to shapeshift and knowing how to be able to mix and blend with everybody around you. But being a chameleon also means that who actually knows you for you? But also within that space is, do you know you? Do you know you? Do you know your own needs? Do you know your own wants and desires? Do you have a voice for yourself? Remember, she became a provider for her household. Again, you lose your voice, becoming a provider before your time, being parentified before your time, being a child actor and star, and being told what to do, where to go. And you heard her story. If you listen to that interview, Shannon Sharp, she got angry at one point with a director only once because he was abusing her, basically. But other than that, she willingly takes the direction. And so I'm combining it all to say, adding that fearful avoidant aspect to know that they lose their voice. And so unfortunately, what can happen is you are in a place where you don't feel like you have a voice. That can cause resentment, right? But now she's quote unquote on her healing journey, has come out the marriage and realized, actually, I don't need to love and fear anymore, right? You're suddenly discovering you have a voice. And when you discover you have a voice and you can say what you need to say and you really are living it, then you're like, I'm going to live my authentic truth. I think Jonathan Majors is her authentic truth. Okay? A little bit of Christian, a little bit of a bad boy. Okay? All right? Remember, the constraints of you being in church is not the same for you being outside. She likes a Christian bad boy. Okay? A little bit of a Christian bad boy. We saw Jonathan Majors carrying his Bible into church on the madness that he was doing. You know what I mean? So it's really interesting to kind of see that aspect as well, because like I said, Meagan didn't choose this. She didn't want this. Now, I want to just break it down a little bit further. What do we know about Jonathan Majors? Well, first and foremost, he said he wants a Coretta or an Obama type of woman. Okay. He wants a unified presence in public. And his last relationship was very toxic. And he's heavy on the support, wanting support, heavy on that word support. And I think Meagan Good is willing to play that role because that's what she saw her mother do. She saw her mother playing that supportive role, even though her mother wasn't with her father anymore. She saw her mother play that supportive role. And also because fearful avoidance have an anxious attachment style too. And that anxious side always wants to earn the love of other people. One of the ways that anxious people earn the love of other people is through always serving people. And I'll do a separate video for this. They always serve. And they continually serve until they're tired because they want to, they are two things. They're ignoring their own needs and wants and don't want to have to actually do the work to do it. So they rather just try and serve you. And number two, also at the same time, because they need to feel valuable. And they feel valuable when they're in a state of serving. That's why I mentioned that video about making good submission. Because actually later in that video, she mentions how important it is she wants to be in that place of submitting and supporting and being in that place where she can support her husband. Right? It's what I'm saying to you. So this doesn't seem abnormal for me that she's dating someone Jonathan Majors. At first I was like, but I realized no, she comes from that back. She comes from a particular background. It's not a normal background, you know. You know, everybody thinks she's a sweet, innocent girl, and she is an innocent woman. But everyone thinks of this person who hasn't gone through some stuff. She's gone through some stuff as a child. All right, listen to this.
You know,
anyway.
I grew up with my dad is very much a part of my life, but you know, my parents separated and divorced. Me and my sister were 4 and 6. So he's kind of always been out of the house. His job was extremely time consuming, and the relationship became what it is now in our 20s. You know, so I always had the mentality of, you know, that a man will always leave you, that you have to protect yourself. You have to be able to pick up the pieces immediately. You can't fall apart, to just not be what I thought was weak, to always just be one step ahead. Like my brain would just go through all these, you know, things that weren't true to how I felt in my heart, but they were mentally what I felt I had to tell myself to protect myself.
Right.
And then, you know, just the things that you go through, you know, in relationships, growing up, you know, until you find your husband. If you allow certain things to play out, especially just, you know, with the physical part of it and all of that, it's just a lot of damage can be done in the process. And I think that with him...
Listen, that woman loved Devon Franklin. I don't know what Devon Franklin did or what he felt that she didn't do. They need to get back together because that woman loves him. You know, I think Meagan is choosing the person who she wants. I think she's not in a place of fear, and she's choosing the person that she actually genuinely finds attractive and wants. You know what I mean? And I think she's drawn to that caretaker role, right? Because look at the timing of their relationship being released at the point where he most needed her. Now, don't get it twisted. Biblically, this also happens. Isaac and Rebecca, his mom passed away. Rebecca comes at the time, perfect time where, he's just, mom's passed away and she supports him. So, it's not abnormal, but I'm saying pay attention to the timing. He needs her most now, of course. And I think I'm going to be honest with you, that the relationship overlapped. Let's be honest. Their relationship overlapped somewhere it overlapped, because the fact that they can't tell the beginning of the story as to how they got together. Yeah, and I've been there, so I'm not even going to judge. I'm not judging anybody who's at. We all know that sometimes telling the beginning of the story, yeah, it's a bit techie. But yeah, no. So in that situation, I think this is a major choice. But we know that he wants someone to support and back him, and I believe that she appreciates the fact that she can play in a role where she actually she can be that person who is, quote unquote, I don't want to say savior, but savior in a sense, right? Because that comes with that parentification. You're used to being in a place where you serve people. And I think she oscillates between the two, one in freedom, at the same time being able to be a caretaker. Now, someone might say that's an oxymoron, but it's not. The fifth and avoidance are oxymorons, because they actually can be anxious and avoidant at the same time. So in that space, I think she wants to almost be the person who kind of saves, but at the same time, she's gonna want her freedom within the relationship. Isn't
Exactly
this
what it is. And he's not used to all that. He's been in the business for 8 years. A lot of this stuff is culture shock to him. So, there'll be paparazzi taking pictures, and I'm like, whatever. And I have to be like, baby, you gotta smile.
Now, if you listen to the rest of that interview where she goes on to talk about how she almost in a sense has to kind of guide him through it. Yeah, because she likes that role, I'm not saying she wants to lead him. I'm saying she likes that her position is solidified through her value, being that she's a supportive person and supportive partner. Okay. All right. Now, that's partly trauma, I think, but I think that's also partly just her. She just wants to be able to support a person. And he's offering that role. Now, is that traumatic that he's offering that role? A little bit too. I think so. But I don't want to judge it, right? Too heavy without much more evidence. But I think he offers that role of a supportive partner, and the plaudits and the appreciation comes in that role. So I think for her, playing that role while simultaneously also wanting her freedom to do her career and everything, and he's also an actor too and knows how it is, right? I think that's the reason why she's ended up choosing someone like Jonathan Majors. I think she saw the brokenness in him and was like, I just need to just love this man. I think she saw a part of herself and her own brokenness and identified it in him, and was like, nobody covered me in my time of need. I'm going to cover you in your time of need. Which is actually probably what I should have said in the very beginning of the video, is that you see someone else's brokenness and you're like, they didn't do it for me, so I'm going to do it for you. They didn't cover me when I needed it when I was a youngster. And your heart goes out to them. You're empathetic. I'm going to cover you like they didn't cover me. So that's my opinion and thoughts on that situation. I do want to do a separate video specifically about the Meagan Good and her not wanting to divorce. And that tells me a lot, because the reason why she's so hurt is because she never wanted to divorce. But anyway, we'll make sure, guys, you like, share, subscribe, click on that bell button. I want to let you guys know also we have a great thing coming up next week, 2nd of August. We are doing our kind of like 100 Club situation where we're going to be having conversations on Zoom, and we'd love to have you guys on board. It's not free. I won't lie to you guys. Okay, it's not free, but it is a chance for you guys to kind of come have conversations, be a part of we'll have some quizzes, breakout rooms, networking, etc. Just for you guys to have a bit of fun and be involved with other people as well. So if you love having those lives that I normally do online, I know I'm not doing them as much, then please come and sign up to our 100 Club, and the description's the link's in the description box. And it'll be 2nd of August, and the next one will be 6th of September. So we are looking forward to seeing you guys. Okay, all right. Don't play with it, baby. Okay, make sure you sign up, get involved. Love, appreciation. We'll see you again soon.